In this video, we'll show you how to set up one of our Valentine scooters. Unscrew the screws holding the top of the cage in place. Take out the wheel. Cut all the zip ties off. Undo all the top bolts. After you removed all the bolts, remove the top of the cage. Remove the bar on the left side near the wheel by undoing the bolt. Next, remove the bolt and nut from the front wheel. You don't need to keep the nut, but you do need to keep the bolt. It's the axis for your front wheel. Push the bolt halfway out, but not all the way out. Use any sort of hard object to push it through, like a hammer or a block of wood. Next, we'll be setting up the handlebar. Be sure not to pull this up too far, as that could damage the connecting wires. Grab the ignition key and then open the box under your seat. It'll have your tools, instruction manual, battery, and spare parts that you'll need. Next, we'll be setting up the battery. This pin is for your steering. This one is for your axle. This nut is for the pin, and these are locking nuts. Make sure this goes through and locks in like that. Use a wire cutter to cut these wires. There's one on both sides. If you don't have a wire cutter, you can try to undo the wires, but it's just a lot easier to cut them. Next, we'll put the wheel on. You'll need a 17mm and a 14mm wrench. You'll need some sort of block to hold up the front. Place something under the middle of the Valentine like this. Use a screwdriver to wedge open the brake pistons. Cut the zip tie off. Then put this piece onto here. You can remove the zip tie. Get the locking nut and spacer. The spacer will be placed on the side with the brake. Push the spacer through into the wheel like this. Line this up with the wheel. Make sure this notch lines up with the notch on the back of this piece here. Place the 14mm nut on one side and the 17mm nut on the other side. Use one wrench to hold one side down while tightening the opposite side. After you're done, spin the front wheel to make sure the front wheel spins freely. Next, you'll need a 10mm socket wrench. Remove this nut, then put the wheel cover on and place the nut on the back. Do the same for the opposite side. After you do all that, it's best to set up the battery next. You must wear skin protecting gloves when setting up the battery because we'll be handling battery acid. These are the points for the battery. Tear the back strip, line up these bottles and push it down. You'll have to give the bottles a bit of a squeeze to push down the acid. Be sure all the acid goes into the container. Once all the acid is in, be careful when pulling the container out as acid may spill. Put the cap back on and push the lid back down. Now we'll leave the battery alone for a while to mix. Next, we'll be setting up the steering stem. We put the bolt in before. Now we'll put the nut on the bolt. This part is pretty hard to do. Turn the steering all the way around so that you can see the open side of the bolt. The wires will often get in the way. You'll need to use a wrench on the bolt side to hold it down while tightening the nut on the open side. It's important to tighten this firmly, otherwise your steering will shift around while riding. We'll leave the front open until we've tested all the electronic components. Next, we're going to pump the brake a number of times to get the air out of the line. You'll feel when it's done. Next, we'll install the battery. Remove the battery cover here. Take the nut and place it under. Then place the positive on top. Then screw the bolt through. Take the second nut and place it under the other side, then put the negative line in place, then put the bolt on top and screw that through as well. Now we'll place everything back. Place the fuse on the side pocket like so. Place the battery cover back on and retighten all the bolts holding it in place. You can use a power drill to make this easier. Next, we'll be starting the scooter. Put gas in the gas tank. We recommend using a funnel to avoid spills. Hold down the ignition button and hold down the brake while turning the throttle. It may take a few tries to work since fuel needs to pump through the line. Make sure all the electronics like the light and the horn work. Place a spar and screw in the nuts with your hands. Place the wires back properly. Tighten the cover under the headlight. Finally, we're going to put the cover on the front steering stem. Next, we'll put on the front badges. Just simply take the screws and screw them in. Pretty straightforward. The next step after that is putting the mirrors in by hand. You can simply just take the mirrors and tighten them like so. The last thing to check is to check the oil reservoir to make sure there's oil in there. There should be oil in there, but if there's not, the Valentine uses 1040 motor oil. And that should be everything. Your Valentine scooter should now be set up. If you have any questions, you can email us at support@bikeberry.com and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. I'd like to thank you for purchasing one of our Valentine scooters, and I hope you guys enjoy the product. Be sure to subscribe to this channel so you get our future videos. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.